maybe we could get things started good before the mayor gets here, so with that, I'll call the work session to order and turn it over to Eric or Matt, whichever one.
Real quick intro and then Mayor. Oh, there's Mayor.
Other side, sorry. Sorry.
Now we come to you went the long way.
Do you want us, instead of going through the regular council agenda first, to turn it over to you? Are you staying for the couple meetings? Yes. Okay. Do y'all want to do the presentation first, or do you want to go through the work session stuff first? Do you want them to give their presentation or go through the council? Okay. Okay. Tonight we'll have Reverend Cooley, who is a deputy over at the juvenile court and is also a local reverend, will be giving an invitation. Announcements, y'all receive a copy of the announcements. We do have two proclamations, the National Public Works Week and Snellville Entrepreneur Day. If you guys could sign those before we go in there so that when we read them, we'll be ready to present unless anybody has any questions or problems with the proclamation. Minutes, does anybody have any questions over the minutes? Invited guests, we do have Mr. Ewing.
He won't be here.
We do have then Mr. Brooks. Do you want one?
Anything would be better.
We do have Mr. Brooks here to give us a report or update on what's going on over with CID and Parks and Rec. Ms. Gail Hill should be here tonight, and Urban Redevelopment Authority, Todd Warner. Nothing on the consent agenda. Old business. We have the senior housing personal care home. Did everybody receive some email correspondence about that?
But
I don't see.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not here, it's the one that's on Forest Road.
Yes, it's on Forest Road. Planning Department recommended denial. It does not have, it's on a septic tank, and so the septic system that it's set up for can only support, I believe, 3 people. And she's asking for 3 adults plus herself to reside there. It's a 3-bedroom home. So the Planning Department and the Planning Commission recommended denial. Does anybody have any questions or any discussion about that? No?
We drove by yesterday, it's pretty grim.
Yeah.
It's a pretty grim looking house.
It's been vacant. I believe it was a foreclosure or something like that. It's been vacant
Yeah.
a long now.
it's gonna even have to be, I can't see it being rehab from the state. It's in about one by the other day.
If there's no further discussion, we move on to new business. The light pole banners around Town Green for the farmers market. I believe those will be going up on the light poles, and they will be set up while the farmers market is in session. Does anybody have any questions about that, or do we want to add anything to that?
Who's gonna install them and take them down?
Public Works.
Public Works.
Oh, Cecil, I thought Public Works was not.
Well, I'm sorry.
Cecil's gonna do it, the guy's making it.
Oh, he's gonna put them up and then take them down and put them up after week after
Is
week.
that a good
Stay up till
Is that a
October.
good- Yeah.
Oh, do it, okay, doing these.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. The CDBG grant is a community block grant that we've qualified for in the past. We need to renew in order to stay qualified for that. Do you have anything you want to add?
in order to get the community development block development grants, you have to keep the agreement in force, and so it's just a re-signing of that agreement.
Any questions about that? Okay. Consideration and action on the, Market Street Services approval of that tonight. We're gonna have a presentation shortly. I personally am gonna ask that we postpone this. I think we've just gotten the final copy of this today, and I don't know about the rest of you. I know Mayor Pro Tem Wood and Councilwoman Diane or Councilwoman Kraus were part of the committee, but the rest of us haven't had a chance to really sit through and read it and digest it, so I don't feel comfortable making any decision about it tonight.
You still wanted to present it? No?
I mean, I'd like you to present it in the work session so that we can get some more information about it.
I think the presentation seems clearly here, at least let them do that.
I think the action though is whether we're gonna go forward and what we're gonna fund and next committee and things of that nature, and I just haven't had a chance to sit down and read through it. We then have the, combination procedures for the LCI that have appeared on the agenda. I'll recuse myself from item number D, since that's my office building, but I will turn it over to Mr. Powell to give us an update on that and what we need to do.
These are all the parcels that are remaining in the LCI project. I can tell you all of them will not ultimately need to be condemned. We are still working to resolve some of them. We're actually halfway through closing one of them, so there's reason for hope. But to meet the DOT time requirements, we have to have title by the end of June, and it's the declaration of taking method of road acquisition work is the only way to get there between now and then. So this is first step. We have an advertising requirement that's gearing our timing. It has to be, the project itself has to be advertised once these resolutions are approved. So we're asking you to approve them on all that we don't have title to today as a precaution. And we will continue to work to try and resolve these with the property owners.
The LCI project is going very well right this minute, as far as finding the DOT and everything else. So.
We are, this is interesting because you know, the process we're using, the declaration of taking, is one that was preserved for the DOT. So their acquisition people really understand what we're having to go through to get ready. And they keep asking us about the time frame for when we'll hold title. So it's going really well in terms of the way it's being handled by staff and the acquisition people. I'd say at the DOT level, we're getting some arbitrary deadlines that are a little bit hard to understand, but we're gonna meet them regardless. so it's they've got the money, and we're trying to accommodate.
We got the time.
Yeah.
Tony, you said that some of them are going through the complete system of closing on the property.
Yes, some of them are mid-closing, but we haven't finished, so now's the time period we have to get approval, or we'll be out of luck for June the 30th. So we're getting them all approved, and if somebody happened to back out on an agreement, we'd still have title by June the 30th.
Well, I'm not sure my follow-up question would require an executive session, but I mean, are you saying any of them are on this agenda item?
One of them that we're half closed is on the agenda item, but we're not fully closed. So we're just making sure we can meet that time requirement.
So how do we handle that? Because this is a part of the.
Well, when all of them could settle. The fact that we approve a resolution to use a declaration of taking doesn't mean that we're not going to ultimately get the property owner to agree. All the property owners are negotiating. It's not like we're just buying land. So we're mid-haggle, and everybody's acting in good faith. And so, but when it gets down to it, when we get the Department of Transportation that's funding most of the project, they say, okay, you got to have title by June the 30th. Then we don't have any choice. We can either forego the project or line up to have title by that time. And there's a tool called the declaration of taking that'll get us there, so that we actually have title by that time.
So if it was the former, then what would be the next pickup date?
If it were, when you say the former, you mean by agreement?
By foregoing?
Foregoing the condemnation process, you'll have a shot at that at the end of this meeting, at the executive session. You'll have a shot at, I think, 3 other parcels that they're counter proposals on. So we're continuing to negotiate, so.
All right, so we're still gonna have an exec session?
Yes, yeah, and many more, but between now and around the end of the process.
As you know, this is on an agenda item right now.
Yeah, and it's just a first step. It isn't burning any bridges, or it's just a procedural step.
Does the council ever, if we go forward tonight, do we take any other votes as far as the condemnation is concerned? Or is, if we don't resolve it, does it come in front of us during any of the other steps?
No, once you vote to do this process, you will not have to vote again on the process. But between now and even filing the complaints, you will have offers back and forth. I mean, you'll still meet on the property to discuss settlement of those cases repeatedly. It'll go. There will be a court process that we engage in during the month of June filing, but it will not stop the negotiation.
This is just setting up the remedy if we don't settle.
And it's not your choice to do this. This is a necessity of the DOT deadline. I mean, you just got no other. You don't have another choice.
We will vote on this tonight.
You will.
Individually or
Yeah.
as a group?
Have to vote on them individually.
And if we don't settle it throughout the process and it actually goes to court, what is the liability, what does the city risk that we could pay?
It's what's in the enlightened conscience of a jury. And the testimony is going to be the appraisal testimony that you see. The lawyers know how this goes. And so they have an appraiser, we have an appraiser. We're comparing appraisers just like a jury does, even as we speak. I mean, and provided we've acted in good faith, I'll give everybody a little hint what juries do in condemnation cases. As long as everybody's acting in good faith, they're gonna come out in between those 2 numbers, so you know what the parameters are. Because there's no other way to decide it. I mean, you got 2 opinions, and unless something's skewed about them. I will tell you, I think your staff and appraisers in this case have met the standard of acting in good faith really well. I don't think you're gonna have difficulty in litigating these cases if you had to.
Okay.
Any questions about any of the individual cases?
Yeah, I got a question. Can since these are in blocks, if we have to go to court, can these individual that are listed on these properties, can these individuals file a separate litigation case, or can they group together, or how does that work?
No, we invite them to ours, and we all are in the same situation. They can there's a process of challenging a take, which would be effectively a counterclaim. But in a case like this where it's an LCI and you're doing a road project, there's not a way to win that situation. I mean, it can be asserted, but it's not viable. And so what ends up being tried is the issue of how much is the property worth. That's the sole subject matter. So
It's not a do or don't, it's how much.
that's right. And there's not an attorney's fees component in the damages from the condemnee's side. And that's not something that you decided. It's the way the law's written and the way the courts have interpreted it. So your actual exposure is the actual value that a jury places on the property you're taking. And the damages, and this is important in these cases, the damages that are created to the remainder interest. And one of the key ingredients in this one is assessing the value of parking places. And that's how you affect, parking places, you affect the value of the remainder. And that's why some of these numbers are fairly large.
Okay, has everybody got that? Everybody got it?
Any other questions? I think we
Number
should have-
24 doesn't have a number, that's an exec session issue.
No, it's not. It's completing the process of the approval of the appraiser. You'll see that number come back.
Any other questions? Okay, that concludes then our regular agenda. We'll move on to the work session agenda. Chief, any correspondence that you need to share?
We don't have any other than that. I think you got a note in everybody's box from Representative Harold, commending everybody for Snellville.
Also, did everybody, I haven't looked to see, did everybody get copied? I received about 8 or 9, maybe 10 emails today on the soccer. Has everybody gotten those too? We need to put those into the record. Everybody got them, we don't need to share them. A city attorney's report? Anything?
I think my agenda items are enough for tonight.
All right, and so we will turn it over to you.
Okay. We have a presentation by Matt Tester. He's been working with he works with Market Street. He's been working on our strategic action agenda since council approved a contract with him back in January. The summary is in your packets, and without further ado, Matt, I'll let you jump in.
Thanks very much. I want to start off just by thanking you all for having us here again. We've been working in the community with a great group of leaders and volunteer helpers on the work group throughout this process, all the way from the very beginning kickoff of the competitive profile through the draft version of this document, through this final version that we want to share a little bit with you about with you tonight. We don't want to take the entire time here, so we're going to talk through some of the high points of the plan, recognize that you've got it in your hands, and I'll point you to some page numbers throughout so you can see more specifics as we go through. But I do want to thank you for the opportunity to present this to you and have the conversation and discussion that we're going to have tonight. I also want to specifically say thanks to those council members who served on the work group with us and really helped guide and shepherd this throughout. We feel as though we've had really great participation and have worked hard to reach a broad constituency and community, and they've been a good help in doing that and identifying people and being able to reach out to them. So thank you as a start. I'm here. I've been the team leader throughout, leading the process and leading most of the meetings with the work group. I'm joined by Kathy Young, who is our Director of Operations. Tonight, some of you are familiar with Renata Robinson, who's been on the project team but couldn't be here tonight, and is sorry that she can't be here. But what we're going to do is very quickly just review the process again, even though we've done that before, just to re-familiarize you with that. Show you the final structure of this strategic action agenda as conceived by the work group. Talk about some of the implementation considerations, which is what we spent a lot of time with the work group talking about today. And then open up the time to question and discussions. And obviously, I expect you may have some questions throughout, so we'll field those as we go along. But the process, this graphic represents the process that we've gone through over the last 3 months here, and it does represent a streamlined process designed to provide the city with a foundation for reinvigorated economic development efforts. And while it's been brief, a strong effort was made to reach a broad constituency, and we've really attempted to draw on the knowledge and the priorities of the community. We accomplished that through a few mechanisms, a couple of which are called out in those blue blocks there, but a full day of focus groups and interviews on site with many follow-up interviews and phone calls to some key constituents in the community. We also conducted a survey that reached approximately 200 residents, business owners, workers throughout the city who have deep knowledge of what it's like to live and work here. The work group really provided that next level of leadership throughout that was needed to vet the ideas that we presented to them and to represent the interests of that broad constituency. And that's why it was very important that at the beginning, as we developed that work group, we had good input from several key leaders as to who might help represent those corners of Snellville that need to have a voice. And so we feel as though the work group did accomplish that. And the competitive profile, which is that phase one, the first red block, really showed that Snellville is changing. And some of those changes, such as the recent population loss over the last several years represent broad challenges that really permeate the community, but others such as the diversification of the populace, specific growth in some key business sectors, open new opportunities. The strategic action agenda builds on that basis of research and feedback to provide the what to do about economic development going forward. And this whole process, as it was built from the beginning, does reference the work of Partnership Gwinnett 2.0, which is that broader county-level economic development plan and program and process that was led by the Gwinnett Chamber's Partnership Gwinnett wing, and really created the template for countywide economic development. So the question is, how can Snellville help plug into that? How can it drive forward some of the initiatives there? And what are those things that are specific to Snellville that are unique in this place can drive? And so we begin, after talking about the what to do, to discuss the how to do it, which is the implementation concerns attached to the things that are included in this plan. To build the framework of the plan, it really did require a diverse set of inputs. We needed to talk to people through those focus groups. We needed to reference the existing plans and processes that the city had been through, such as Town Center. We contracted with a site selection professional to do a site analysis of some priority sites that were provided to us by the city in terms of how appropriate they are for certain kinds of business development, and we'll touch on that in just a moment. We conducted that survey. We conducted interviews in person and over the phone, and then we had the work group providing leadership and guidance throughout. Those helped inform the objectives that would frame the next layer of framework underneath those project goals that we have understood from the beginning as being related to development and redevelopment, small business and entrepreneurship, talent, leadership. Within each of those objectives in the document that you have, we've helped to flesh them out some by talking in detail about the issue that underlies them, whether that's a challenge, an opportunity, a specific development that's going on in the city, or a specific known resource, description of the issue, how this objective connects to the Partnership Gwinnett process and plan, and also Snellville-specific actions that will drive it forward. So we think that format really helps to drive home that it is connected to a broader network, because the reality of economic development in smaller municipalities like these is that you are resource constrained. You can't throw millions upon millions of dollars every year at economic development. And so the question is, how can you tap into those resources or partners throughout the county, throughout the region, to help you accomplish some of your goals? And so that's how we frame the document, and we hope you find it useful to be conceived that way. And so that does lead us to the final strategic action agenda. And so once we had that general structure of the goal areas and the objectives as determined by the work group, we set out to develop a vision statement that would really frame the entire process and help communicate what it's about. We asked the work group members to consider several options and presented it to them in a survey so that they could vote as to what was the most appropriate and fitting, and to choose the one that really articulated the vision. And so this was the clear favorite, and we do agree that it captures the work of this process very well. And it reads, the city of Snellville is fostering greater economic opportunity by promoting small business and entrepreneurship, developing exemplary talent and leadership, and pursuing targeted economic development opportunities that improve its residents' quality of life and diversify its economy. It may read like a mouthful, but it's fairly concise and to the point in terms of the things that were being accomplished through this process. And so we hope you find that useful as well as we talk through the rest of this piece and go through some of the goal areas. And so that brings us to the final set of recommendations that have emerged from this process. And so as we talked about when we proposed the work to you and when we introduced the competitive profile to you, and this the verbiage has been tweaked a little bit, but we'll talk through the specifics so that you know that the goal areas are essentially the same. This is what has shaken out. It's development and redevelopment, small business and entrepreneurship, talent and leadership. These are the pillars of proactive economic development going forward for Snellville. And I'm going to show you the objectives within each of those goal areas that the work group has agreed upon today, and just call out a few of the high-level actions that support some of these objectives, so you know a little bit more specifically what we're talking about as we present today. But development and redevelopment is really about repositioning vacant properties that are found throughout the city, that some residents and respondents to our stakeholder input mechanisms really said was one of the things they were most concerned about, that they'd seen more vacancies recently. The city provided us with a vacant parcel inventory that helped us think through how that actually plays out in Snellville. And so you'll see in Appendix B that the vacant parcel inventory is there for you to see based on business type, based on geography, based on different shopping centers, where some of those vacancies are. And so you can start thinking about how other residents in your community might be perceiving them. Also, diversifying Snellville's economy. We mentioned when we presented to you last that we would talk about some of the business sectors that are appropriate for development here in Snellville. We'll touch on those in just a moment. Providing the infrastructure necessary for businesses to flourish, and that's not just transportation infrastructure, that's informational infrastructure. Utilizing available tools to activate town center as expressed as a priority by the residents here in Snellville. What are those things that will actually help local leaders here shape that environment and move the ball forward on the vision for that plan, even understanding that the development environment is very constrained and money is hard to come by. And then ensuring that the physical environment in Snellville reflects the quality of the community. For many, many years, this has been one of the top communities in Gwinnett County, and we heard residents say that they want to see the physical aspect and the aesthetic of their community reflect that quality as everybody understands it. And so we provide some actions. I'll call out a few of them here. I mean, one of the things when we're talking about repositioning vacant properties, there are broader groups in the county looking at the same issue, how to redevelop strip centers, how to repair some of the negative impacts of land sprawl. And so Partnership Gwinnett has a redevelopment forum that's actively asking those questions. And so making sure that Snellville delegates are plugged into that. Surveying retailers, making sure that you understand what are the barriers to success in their given commercial district. What are the things that are making businesses not do well when they're not? What are the things that are helping them thrive when they are? Making sure that you're tapped into those there. Also want to touch on the priority sites again. You'll see in Appendix, I don't want to misspeak, I think it's Appendix A. Appendix A is the priority sites inventory. It's a pullout. It's kind of a Z fold, so you can see full 11 by 17. We asked the site selector to tell us, based on the Partnership Gwinnett target business sectors, what's appropriate in these places that the city's told us are high priority vacant sites and buildings in Snellville. What can happen here? And so he rated each of those for appropriateness. And what really came to the surface was that professional and corporate services, information and technology solutions, and healthcare services have specific opportunities in some of those priority sites for you to consider how to treat. So one of the recommendations is developing contingency site plans for each of those that allows for flexible zoning, that allows for rapid response for when new prospects that might want to develop something in your community, that you've positioned those sites in a way where you can capitalize on those most likely opportunities. And we think that these three business sectors really capture what some of the most likely and high value development opportunities will be on those sites. Also talk about a broadband master planning process and going through that. We know that there is some fiber optic service throughout the city, but making sure that it's more broadly distributed, that it supports things like ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems, that it also feeds in directly to sites that need to be marketed for development opportunities. So we know that infrastructure, fiber infrastructure served sites are more marketable, obviously, than those that aren't. When it comes to town center development, we'll discuss when we start talking about implementation some of the key recommendations there, but we do want to mention that the already planned expansion of the town center overlay district that was developed through that process, ensuring that that proceeds as planned to make sure that the full vision is actualized, that the opportunities to develop as opportunities present themselves going forward that the legal designation, the zoning designations are there for when the market comes back and when those development opportunities arrive. We're going to talk very specifically about some of the tools that can activate that development, or at least begin to open up opportunities when we talk about implementation. And in terms of the physical environment reflecting the quality of the community, providing a facade grant so that commercial districts that are suffering a less attractive physical aspect have opportunity for a matching fund to help them redevelop their facades, to make sure that the quality of their shopping in commercial districts are communicated broadly. And to also do that to make sure that the sign ordinance is effectively and uniformly enforced. We heard that from several business owners that sometimes they had a sense that that may not be the case. So making sure that enforcement is uniform, that people understand that, and so we make a couple recommendations as to how to do that in the plan a little bit more effectively. Talking about small business and entrepreneurship, this involves some of the most exciting things going on in Snellville and things that are have been hitting the ground running recently. I should mention, by the way, that as I show you these, the order of these objectives reflects the order that the work group prioritized them in. And so it's just a visual aid to show you that the priorities are reflected in the document itself. And as we talk through it, you can kind of consider how the work group conceived of these. And so one of the things that we were excited about was to see that embracing diversity as a means of driving small business development was highly prioritized by the work group. The reality is, as we talked about during the competitive profile, the community is rapidly diversifying, just as the rest of Gwinnett County is. And so that presents very specific opportunities in some cases for small business development. There are international and minority-serving chambers here in Gwinnett County that really have resources and connections into those communities that are capable of connecting Snellville better. We also talk about pulling together the resources and aligning those processes to support small business and entrepreneurs, really creating that environment where they can thrive. And one of the things that we are excited about seeing happening is that the Snellville Entrepreneur Council is beginning to put together their collateral and get their operating documents up and going so that they'll be able to build that program capacity in strategic and operational support, access to information and resources, education for small business owners, access to capital and access to the informational tools about accessing capital. Also networking opportunities here within the city and within the broader region. These are the things that really prop up an environment for small business entrepreneurship. A city can't do everything. A public institution can't do everything about creating that environment. But you can control the things that you need to, and the Entrepreneur Council really helps provide that conduit. It's also about promoting success stories for businesses that are here, using those channels, those business organizations, those community organizations that are plugged in to people that are thriving here in Snellville, and making sure that that's trumpeted throughout the community so that people are succeeding here and throughout the region, so people want to relocate here. Also making sure from the very bottom you create a culture of entrepreneurship, and it starts with students, getting students more involved in those organizations at schools and through professional organizations that connect them to business and entrepreneur education. What's it like when I graduate to actually be involved in the work of a lifetime? And so the Entrepreneur Council, the Commerce Club, Eastside Medical Center is actually doing some innovative things in connecting to students, showing them career pathways and how you can plug in. And so we talk about some very specific ways to help do that. This last goal area, talent and leadership, received very high prioritization by the work group. Almost all of these objectives had top-level priority, which was great because we really feel as though in a place like Snellville, it really is about activating the community, getting people who want to be plugged in the work of making this place great and driving new opportunities and bringing new resources to the table, making sure they're at the table. It is a team sport, as our CEO says in almost every opportunity he gets. This is the work of an entire community. It's not the work of a specific focus group or work group or even an implementation committee, which we'll be talking about in a moment. It's about involving everyone and giving ownership to everyone to drive forward the things that they really connect with them. And so we